to the Over the Line podcast. I'm your host, James McGee. This podcast is dedicated to reshaping the future of American soccer by having real conversations about the challenges holding our system back and exploring the opportunities to help take the game over the line. My mission is simple: to uncover the truth, amplify the voices of trailblazers, and help educate the next generation of players and parents so they can navigate the system and help unlock their full potential, both on and off the field. If this conversation inspires you, challenges your perspective, or adds value to your journey, please be sure to rate, review, and share it so we know it's making an impact. Now, let's dive into today's episode. From the original NASL to MLS Next Pro, Ron Gilmore has spent a lifetime shaping the game behind the scenes. Growing up in soccer operations with the San Jose Earthquakes, he built early experience before working with the Warriors in PR and team operations. He later moved on to Arizona State University's SID, setting the foundation for a long career in sports management. He's played key operational roles in the 1994 FIFA World Cup, the 1999 Women's World Cup, and over 30 national team events and 4 CONCACAF Gold Cups. He later took on key leadership roles with Arizona United of the USL Championship, Cal United Strikers of NISA, and NISA's league office, where he served as Executive Vice President of Operations. Most recently, Ron launched his own Stadia Sports and Event Management company, helping clubs like the Town FC and Ventura County FC of MLS Next Pro and many other leagues, helping all these people enhance their match day operations and their revenue generation. With decades of experience at every level of the game, Ron has played a crucial role in the evolution of American soccer. Ron, thank you for joining us. I'm excited to dive into your journey. Welcome.
It's a pleasure. Happy to join you, and real excited about your podcast and putting a voice out there on something very near and dear and important to you. So happy to participate.
Awesome. So I guess just start off, give us a little bit of info about your company, Stadia Sports and Event Management, and kind of what are you guys doing? How's it going? What made you start that up?
Yeah, so it's really the company is still a one-man band in myself, but I launched it after leaving NISA back in November of 2023, and a very good former friend of ours who just passed away, Austin Daniels, who's a mentor of mine and one of my best friends. We worked together for 5 years at Arizona Youth Soccer. But Austin was much more than a coworker. He was a dear friend, and he used to tell me every day, "Man, why are you working for other people when you can work for yourself?" And I always listened to that, and I always thought, you know what, he's kind of right. But what a leap of faith it is to step aside and walk away from a guaranteed paycheck, weekly, monthly, or however often I was paid at the time. And NISA, working for NISA had its challenges, and that's really, really all I'll say there. I do wish them the best, but it was definitely time for me. I felt the time was right. I had clubs coming to me, asking me to assist them and review how their game day operations were going and how they might be able to improve upon them. And so I went and visited with one club, and that turned into another club, and it just kind of struck me, you know what, this might be the right time to do that. So far so good. Keeping it slow and steady. One thing I don't want to do is take on more clients than I can properly manage. So it's the chicken and the egg, trying to keep the balance there. But no, things are great, and my heart resides in lower level soccer. It doesn't reside in MLS or the English Premier League or any of those others. I love working at the Division II, Division III levels of soccer here in our country, particularly for so many reasons. And I really got a good feel for that when we launched Arizona United. Kyle Ling, myself, Kevin Stevenson, and Todd Mirko and a handful of others launched that club back in 2014. A lot of guys didn't know some of us didn't know what we were doing. Kyle gained access to the franchise, and 27 days later, we hosted a home match. We had no uniform apparel company, we had no stadium agreement, coach, players, trainer, anything. We had nothing, and those were some 20-hour days that we all put in to get that thing going. And what I learned through that experience is that as hard as we worked, I see people who aspire to play at MLS or in various other leagues throughout the country, and I see them working hard to get to that next level. An example: we won a game at Arizona United. One of our players, great guy, walks off the field. I'm like, that was a great game, well done. And he said, "Yeah, but." He wasn't smiling. I asked him why he wasn't smiling. He says, "Because I'm not playing at the level I want to be at. I aspire to keep going." And so that right there, that experience will go with me forever. So what Stadia aspires to do is to assist clubs to promote and present the most professional feeling lower division professional soccer games as they can, be it stadium operations, through concessions and merchandise, clinics, things like that. There's a lot that a Division II and Division III clubs need to do to be successful, and a lot that they need to do to generate the required revenue to stay afloat. So that's kind of where I come in, is to aspire to assist lower level clubs to be good on the field, even better off the field, so that they can sustain for the long run. So kind of a long answer, but I didn't know any other way to give you one there. So
No, no, definitely. And I think obviously I've seen you firsthand. I mean, we were both at Cal United together, and
Mhm.
Corey, obviously your son was on my club team growing up. So I was a
Mhm.
little bit I saw a little bit of the Arizona United and kind of when they came up and when you were there. So I was a little bit involved in seeing all the work that you put in into that.
Right.
Obviously being with you at Cal United, you were kind of the man doing legitimately, you had your hand in everything behind the scenes, kind of making that club run and making it truly like a professional organization and a professional setup. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, awesome. And like you said, you've been involved in, the lower division soccer, and that's kind of where your heart is in the US.
Mhm.
You've been in that space for a long time. How have you seen it change from when you first started out in it to where it's at now?
Uh, it's changed exponentially for the good. Is it perfect? No, but it has changed so much for the good. And if you take a look at the trajectory of what is the USL Championship League and where they started to where they are now, like I said, when we launched Arizona United in 2014, they were playing in Division Three. The NASL was playing in Division Two at that time,
Yeah.
and I was a little bit involved the year prior with Phoenix FC, the team that played at the women's stadium at Arizona State
Yeah.
in USL. And so I got a little taste there of how USL operated. I helped them out from time to time, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it was not very organized. It was you had clubs that were doing things by the book, if you will. Every league has what's called an operations manual, and they present that manual to a club and they say, here's the Bible, if you will. This is what we expect you to do when you host a home match. And it goes all the way, everything down from what the expectation should be for parking, athletic trainers, how many bottles of water should you have, power Gatorade or drinks like that, how your press box should be set up, everything. And that manual changed from 2013 to 14 to 15, and the changes each year were not gradual. They were heavy duty. And they basically, around 2015, USL really started to take off. And they had that, at that time, they had that goal of going to Division Two, whether NASL, which is no longer around, was still there or not. They were going to go from three to two.
Yeah.
And they knew what they had to do to get there. And they haven't looked back. I'm a huge fan of USL Championship for many, many reasons, none the least of which they're properly staffed. If you have a question, they get you an answer. It wasn't always that way. So I would just say the organization, the overall organization of all the leagues truly aspire to be very organized and to assist these clubs because the problem is there's so many clubs that come in and leave. They play for a year, maybe two, and then they go.
Yeah.
And that's been a problem. And it still, quite frankly, is
Yeah.
somewhat of a problem. But from what it was just 10 years ago to what it is now is an amazing, amazing thing. And the USL Championship is run basically like MLS is run with far less people. And they still have their hiccups, they still have their issues, but for the most part, the leadership there is fantastic. And the person running it is Jeremy Allenbaugh, who was the president there of USL Championship. And I got to know Jeremy. He oversaw the Chattanooga FC franchise in Nisa. So that's how I got to know him. And he's been in that role for over a year now, and they just continue to grow. So they're doing well. MLS Next Pro is for truly, I think, just finishing their second year of operation is doing quite well. Their advantage they have is that they've got already most of their clubs exist or had existed, and so there was a level of understanding that all of those clubs had as far as what the expectations were and that they needed to be met. However, they have brought in a few expansion clubs there as well. And that's what I've been keeping my eye on is it's real easy for the Earthquakes to have the town and that you should expect the town to do things the right way, being with the Earthquakes, or just as Ventura County with the LA Galaxy. How does Chattanooga FC, who made the move from NISA to MLS Next Pro, do? And do they get the support because they're kind of on an island as opposed to many of the other teams in MLS Next Pro.
Right.
From what I've seen, things are going well. And it all comes down to leadership and organization, and for those people in those leadership roles to have people underneath them that work hard. And I think things are going really well right now at the pro level in our country.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, there's some issues. Every league has issues, but for the most part, I think overall it's going very well.
Sure. I think all the time it's easy to point out the problems and where we can get better and stuff, but it's also important to look back at like what it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago compared to what it is now. And it's clear that like these leagues are growing and growing and growing, and the more professional opportunities that any of the players have at the youth level is always going to be a positive, right? The more domestic opportunities you have to go play, the better. And I think that kind of goes into like my follow-up question on that too.
Real quick, James, one of the things, because you just mentioned it there, that it does provide the players with a lot of opportunities, but look at all the other people opportunities for it. Provides people like me in the operations world, or athletic trainers, or coaches, or team administrators, and all the support staff that goes into these teams. And it's opening the door for these people to start at a lower level. We have a person that worked with us at Cal United who's now just landed the team administrator role at with the MLS Houston Dynamo. It's an opportunity. So we provided an opportunity at Cal United for Rico to come in, learn. Just finished college at Cal State Fullerton, moved over, worked for us for 2 seasons, moved on to Houston's second team, and he's climbing the ladder. He's now the team administrator for the Houston Dynamo. He's out of minor league soccer. He's in the big leagues now. Yeah. And so I use him every day as an example that if you love this sport, you don't just have to be a player. You can love the sport and be involved every day. There's so many different roles, and as soccer grows, it's just going to grow the opportunities more and more for people who want to be involved. So
yeah, for
I
sure.
just thought that was important to get that in. That's something that goes really overlooked. People just don't understand how cool it is, and that the opportunities that are being given for people that want to stay in the sport.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's a great point. It's just like you said, providing more opportunities for anybody that wants to be involved in the sport and taking it to another level, like the growth of these lower division teams. it puts a professional team in more communities and environments that don't have that. So those youth players growing up now have a professional team that they can look up to in their area and go
Mhm.
support that, but also have something to aspire to and go see that firsthand. So I think, yeah, just kind of all of that is like the trickle down effect of how it's helping grow the game in
Yep.
in the US for sure.
Yep.
I think, like we said, it's grown a lot and there's a lot of positives in that. Where would you say we still have the most room for growth in the lower divisions or just in soccer in general and kind of the professional leagues? Where do we have the most room for growth in the US?
I have a double answer for you. I'll take it on the field first, meaning we have an on the field and we have an off the field issue. The on the field issue is um, U.S. soccer is, I know a lot of people who work there, and I've known many people who have worked there over the years. I can say with a straight face that every single person who works there wants to do a good job. They want for soccer to grow in our country. They want to see success on the field. They want finals of the 26 World Cup. Everyone wants that.
Yeah,
How do you get there? And so part of our problem, I mean, it is, if you take a look at the last 10 years and the advent of Pulisic and McKennie and all the players that are coming up, most, if not all, came through the MLS Academy system, which is something that has proven very beneficial
yeah,
to our country. The Prior to the MLS Academy system, the local clubs in MLS did not have any type of control over the players in their market. Now it allows them to develop the guys and gals, to aspire to higher levels and become part of the professional club at a very young age, much like they do overseas in Europe.
yeah,
So that is a good thing. But as far as how does that translate? So our MLS clubs are developing good players for MLS play, or a few
right,
of them that bleed out to Europe and sign big contracts.
right,
How does that translate onto the field during the World Cup when they're wearing the red, white, and blue?
yeah,
That's the million-dollar question that everyone is trying to sort out. And again, I don't. There are a lot of people out there that want to point fingers, and a lot of people that quote unquote hate certain coaches or certain people that are involved. I'd love to talk to those people someday and just say, you have no idea how hard it is to disseminate talent. It is hard. There's so much talent in our country.
yeah,
But one of the things I'd like to see U.S. soccer get back to the regionalization of our game. They through the academies that they had that they dropped, they started a system, academy system through U.S. soccer. My understanding is that it just kind of dropped off, I think, for funding purposes. It could be wrong. But to me, I think that we're talking about young kids that are not yet out of high school that live at home with mom and dad. So that's the block of people I'm going to speak to right here.
yeah,
I think that that group of people, that there should be more regionalization within our sport. I think that you could have, like in U.S. youth soccer, if you recall, prior to all the changes, they had Region 1, 2, 3, and 4.
right,
And we in the West played in Region 4. And so everyone kind of stayed within their own region. And then at the end of the year, then you had regionals. So the top players that won regionals would then go to nationals, where regions 1, 2, 3, and 4 would all come together and create a national champion.
yeah,
Um, I'm a big believer. I think that that type of a system might be a lot better than what I'm seeing now. What I see now is I see kids traveling all over the country. Every time I go to the airport, I see kids wearing soccer stuff, and they're flying from where I live in Phoenix to Florida to wherever, and they're kids. And it's like, come on, what are we doing here? Sometimes I'll say that to myself. I'm not going to lie. So
yeah,
I don't have the right magical answer on this, but the other thing that concerns me with all of this is The NCAA is about to make a massive change when it comes to soccer. Now, I'm not up on all of the things that are coming, but the way we've known the NCAA, if you signed a contract, pro contract, you were done. You could not play collegiately, right? And so, what a lot of academies and a lot of clubs would do is they would steer their players to go to college and to play there until they could either get drafted out or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it was taboo for a young player to sign a pro contract.
Yeah.
Well, that's started to change. And I mean, at Cal United, he played with a young high school player that was the best player on the field against the LA Galaxy, coached by Greg Vanny in the US Open Cup match. He was the best player. He played for Cal United, and he had to be dropped off at the game because he was too young to drive.
Yeah.
Okay, so the players are out there. Now,
Yeah.
how do we take a player like that that's 15 years old and take control and point him in the right direction? Because he's got 30 people behind him, a 15-year-old, saying, you should go that way, you should go that way, you should go that way, you should go that way. And most of the time, a lot of these kids' parents aren't soccer savvy. And so
Right.
they don't understand, who to believe. They don't know who to believe, right? And so we have to just take a step back. And I'm not meaning to confuse the issue, but we have to take a step back and really think through how do we cultivate the 13 to 17-year-old player in our country that gives them an opportunity possibly to stay at home because those are formidable years.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my son at 14, 15, 16 being out of the house and living somewhere else just to play soccer.
Right.
I know there are some kids that want to do that, but not for me. So I think that's what needs to be looked at is dumb it down, bring it down to more of a regional level as far as scouting and everything. And again, I know US Soccer looked at this, but I'm not sure why they backed off. So maybe they know more than me, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like you said, like it's difficult to like when we were growing up, the academy that was in Arizona was RSL Academy, and that was out in Casa Grande, and that wasn't that far from us, but it's still well, it was about 2 hours for you, about an hour for me. But still, if you were to send your kid out to play there, they're living there, they're on their own in those ages, and I think that's tough for families and kids at those young ages to go away from your family, your friends, and all of that, and where you can go grow a lot in soccer, maybe you lose some other things in life and stuff. And so I think that can be really tough. And like to what you said too, like the amount of travel that the young players are doing now is insane with all these different leagues. You've got 12-year-old kids that I coach that are going to California every other weekend or Nevada or Colorado. And it's like that it's just insane. How can we not have a more organized structure? Like when we were growing up, state cup mattered. The state
Mhm.
tournament mattered, and a lot of the things that you did mattered in your state. You didn't have to go play in a league where half of your competition is in another state and you're traveling 6 hours drive or a couple hour flight every week, and you have to pay for the travel, the hotel, all of that stuff. I mean, it's legitimately like we're putting these kids into the club environment, and the goal, typically, I would say for most players, is to go play in college. And with the expenses, the club fees, all that stuff, you're almost paying for college before you even get to college. So
It's
it's
it's I can't tell you how many parents have over the years, and it's just I would just say maybe misinformed, but they're all after that big coveted scholarship, right?
right.
And as you said, they've paid probably three times for youth soccer than they do for actual tuition.
Yeah.
And on the men's side, you got to remember, unless something's changed, I think it's what, 8.8 scholarships or something
Yeah.
like that on a
I,
men's team.
if
So
they're
if you
fully funded, which a lot of them aren't.
so if you get a half ride, that's like amazing,
Correct.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. So depending on what school you go to, if you go to a very expensive school, I mean, it's still very expensive, right? And
Yeah.
and you're going through the rigmarole of being a student athlete and all that. But I am excited to see. I did read something, and again, I don't want to comment too much, but I believe NCAA. I'm sorry. I believe collegiate soccer is about to change. I know that they're talking to U.S. Soccer about some sort of an arrangement where because of nil, clubs could almost operate pro, players could get paid, and kids that play could actually be in school and get
Yeah.
their degrees. Now, if everything I just said there turns out to be real, I'd be very interested to look at that as a parent.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen the same stuff as what you're saying, and obviously there's a lot for it still to play out. I think ultimately it would be a good thing because number one, just from like a development standpoint at the college level, like these kids are going and playing a 3 month long season, right? They play 3 months and then they're in the spring season or whatever it may be. This, from what I've read, is transitioning to kind of like a full on calendar year of soccer. So
Mhm.
they're playing a full calendar year. Then it also changes where what you're talking about, or I would imagine and assume that there would be some different regulations in terms of signing a pro contract earlier, and kids won't be as scared to sign a pro contract earlier because they could still go play in these colleges, these college teams, because now there's the NIL and those sorts of things have changed. So I
Right,
think ultimately, from what I've heard, it sounds like I think it would be a positive. Like I said, again, the more opportunities to play, the better. But also, just from a development standpoint, you're getting something that's more similar to a professional team, a professional environment, right? Like all
right,
these other sports, when you go play in college, it's pretty similar to what the professional standard is going to be.
right.
Soccer is a lot different. You're just going in a 3 month season and it's not formatted the same way as the professional level is. Things are
No.
way different. So a more coherent and together formula from the youth to college to professional, I think would only be a positive going
One of
forward.
the things that's always amazed me about collegiate soccer is how they put they wrap their hands around the player's neck almost to me. There's so many rules and restrictions
Yeah.
that are put upon these players, and so. But if you were a business student at the WP Carey School at Arizona State, and you had an opportunity, and business was your thing, and you wanted to be an accountant, and you wanted to be an accountant at the largest corporation in the world, that was your pathway, your glide scope, if you will, and then they would encourage you to go into a large company and begin learning how the culture is, learning, what's important so that, and getting real hands-on work experience that you could then finish your degree and then take it with you, all these experiences.
Yeah.
Why don't they let soccer players train with pro clubs during summer months and during any time?
Right.
Why don't they let them play and get, it's just amazing to me because everyone's different. College isn't for everybody. That's the other thing missing here. It's just not.
Yeah.
And so it's high time that there are changes, and I do believe they are coming, and I think they're coming soon. And I would encourage everyone to keep an eye on this whole thing with college soccer with U.S. soccer. I think they're going to come up with something pretty cool, and I think it would be great for players and a good change that we need as a country here. Because again, all these kids that are playing in these academies and playing MLS 2 and playing USL 1 and even USL Championship, it's like anything else. How many of them are ever going to get to MLS or get to the EPL?
Yeah.
Very few. So
Yeah.
they need something to fall back on. And
Right.
and that's where I was going with my second point. I think I just read that Crystal Palace over in London is the first club to create a hands-on full-time department that when players are done playing, works with them to help them find their next career, whatever it might be. Helps them with finishing college if they had started and they didn't finish, help them with that and things like that. And I think that with all these online colleges throughout the country, I'd like to see something put in place that these young guys, if you sign a pro contract and you're under the age of 20, or pick a number, any number, if you're under that age, that okay, you can sign a pro contract, but you've got to commit to doing college, something. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just think that I think what's going on right now is pro soccer at all levels is turning players around that when they get to their late 20s, early 30s, a lot of them didn't go to college because they couldn't afford it or whatever it might be. We're putting a lot of kids on the street that just don't know where to go. I still to this day mentor a lot of young guys, help them with their resumes and things like that to give them that nudge and that support to help them along. I'd just like to see something like that come out of U.S. soccer as well. That something like that's not a high dollar funded department, if you ask me, and it's something I'd like to see the federation take a good look at.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I am included in those players that you're talking about that you've kind of helped. And I went to college, like I had a good academic career, and still by the time I was done with soccer, I'm sitting here like, what do I
Hard.
do now? Where do I go
Yeah.
from here? So
Yeah. I mean, I know
definitely.
plenty of guys in their 30s that truly they started playing soccer and they went pro right out of high school. They didn't go to college, which again is fine. College isn't for everybody. But now they're in their mid to late 30s and they're looking around going, what do I do now? And so the next obvious step is they get into coaching, right? And they do that for a while, but never really satisfied with life. So I would just like to see the leagues again. I can't overstate it. I'd like to see the leagues and the federation take a look at what Crystal Palace just did and put something together along those lines. I think that's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Kind of taking it into a little bit of a different gear, a little bit of a different topic. Obviously, you've got a ton of experience in the US soccer system from youth to the professional levels. What are some of the consistent attributes that you see with the best clubs that you've worked with?
Communication and a written pathway. Um, I'll use the Earthquakes as an example. And again, I'm not knocking anyone there. It's an organization that's been in MLS since its inception, and they do a great job. Have a very nice stadium, everything there. I did a lot of work with the town last year, and I saw some communication gaps, and I saw some things that I didn't see in other clubs. And I don't want to go in specifics,
Yeah,
but just some things that they felt they were doing all the right things, the Earthquakes, right? But might have missed target or missed the mark on a few of them. And this year they brought in Bruce Arena to be their new head coach. And all the things that it's funny because every time I go online or whatever, I see Bruce Arena just did this. Bruce Arena just announced that. Bruce Arena. It's almost like he saw the same things that I was seeing and is coming in and resolving them.
yeah,
But but for a true club to succeed, there's got to be a pathway, and there's got to be clubs. The clubs that succeed are the ones like LA Galaxy who give a player a chance that came through their academy. And sometimes when you're in a game and you're losing 2-1, you might have to put in a 17-year-old kid out of your academy who's going to senior prom next week in high school,
yeah,
right? And but you've got to do that. You've got to take chances on these players. If you're going to invest all this money into these academies, sometimes you just have to put the guys out there and see how they're going to do. And so the successful ones are the ones that do that. The Earthquakes did that with Cade Cowell. Now he just signed a big deal down in Mexico.
yeah,
And they've got, I'm telling you, their goalkeeper, they just signed a contract down in Mexico. Unbelievable goalkeeper. Sorry, his name's Emmanuel Espinoza. Unbelievable goalkeeper. So that's happening now. So the on the field with the Earthquakes in the town is good. That's helping, but it all starts at their academy level at the youngest of age to the senior team and everything that bleeds in between. And do they talk to one another? And when a player moves up a level to a different coach, what's that like? Are the coaches on the same curriculum? Are they teaching the same things? And the ones that are successful, like Philadelphia with their from youth to pro, you look around and you can see who the successful clubs are
yeah.
and what they've been able to do. And
No,
Philadelphia's sold off contracts,
right.
so of the Earthquakes, they've sold quite a few contracts. A lot of people don't give the Earthquakes credit for that, but they have. They'd be a better team if they didn't lose a lot of the guys they've sold off over the years. So they know what they're doing. And so, but the successful clubs are, again, the ones that have a good model that's etched in stone and that all the people within the organization are on the same page and working towards the same goal. and that all has to be communication on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's got to be done. If there's assumptions made that this coach is going to coach that way, but he doesn't or she doesn't, then now you have issues because you have a spike in the system. It's got to be consistent.
Right. No, I mean, kind of transitioning a little bit, but also honing in on one thing that you were kind of saying in there, like we're talking about the development of these players and like they've invested, a lot of these MLS teams have invested so much into their academies. Like they get that return on investment by properly developing these players so that when they get to the highest level, they can succeed and then they can make a profit by selling these players with a transfer fee or whatever it may be. And I think you look at kind of the European countries, that's how obviously, the top clubs are the most popular. They make money from ticket sales, jersey sales, all that kind of stuff. But some of the smaller countries, the lower division clubs, like they make a lot of their money from developing these players from the youth age and then going on to selling them in the transfer market. And I think when you look at kind of development in the US, I think that's one thing that is getting better. But like especially at these lowest levels in these clubs that it gets difficult because not all clubs are affiliated with the MLS club, right? So they
No.
don't always have the players' individual development as their number one priority. You know what I
Well,
mean?
because a lot of those clubs don't have the resources that the
Right.
MLS club has. And I'm talking about financial, not just financial, fields, trainers,
Right.
weight rooms, all the things that go into equipment managers. These kids at a young age are getting pretty spoiled that play for these Next Pro. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And you know what? I love it. I say that with a smile. I love it. I think it's great. And
Yeah.
it's going to spoil some. Some kids won't take that the right way and maybe overthink that a little bit, but that's okay. That's human nature. But for the most part, they're doing a really good job of taking care of the day to day for these kids.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
and and look, MLS Next Pro exists for a reason. And this isn't disparaging at all, but MLS Next Pro playing in it came out the ML I'm sorry, the MLS club's second teams started to play in 2015, I believe, might have been 14 in USL. And that when USL moved to Division Two,
mhm.
uh, the problem that MLS clubs were running into is the younger players that they wanted to play on their second teams were too young, and they were being put into Division Two games, and the pace of the game just far out exceeded what they were capable of.
Yeah.
So MLS Next Pro is very smart. They said, nope, we're going to drop down a level to Division Three, where they'll play against more like opponents, if you will, when they get outside of the other MLS clubs. And so they did that. They did that for that reason. The other reason is a lot of these MLS academies spend a ton of money grooming players that when they were out of the RSL Academy, as an example, when they would be 18, they'd go sign pro contracts with USL clubs or other clubs, domestic clubs here, and there was no return on that investment.
Right.
So the benefit to the MLS clubs is that they're able to, for the players that want to, and the clubs that aspire that are good with it, they sign these young players to pro contracts. And what that does is now that player, although that player is still in high school or whatever and plays on either the academy team or on the MLS Next Pro team, they now own that player's rights, and so they can, they have an opportunity to recoup the costs. That's the way the system's supposed to work.
Right.
Right? That's the way it works in Europe. And that's the way. So everything I just said there isn't a knock. It's hallelujah. Now we're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like going off that, like obviously I think that's where we want to be, but that's also like one of the areas that we have the most room to improve is because that's not the way it is in a lot of areas. Like the incentive is not to develop these players because they're not going to get anything in return. A lot of these clubs aren't, right? You look at the different clubs that aren't affiliated with an MLS team. You look in Arizona, all these different MLS Next teams and clubs, right? They can develop these players and ultimately they're not going to see a true monetary return on that investment. So like with that being said, and kind of I think we've alluded to a little bit of like what the problem is, but how can we improve that? Like where can the youth development system in the US, how can we continue to grow it and get better?
Again, I think that if you just think about it for half a second, if you had a regional team, a West region, I mean, look, Southern California, if you drew a line north at Bakersfield straight over to the ocean, Southern California, if it was a country, would qualify for the World Cup. They have
Yeah.
that many good players there, and you've been there and played there. I highly doubt you would disagree with me.
No, yeah, for sure.
Unbelievable. But just have bastions of talent and let them play together and then have tournaments and things and showcase these guys. I don't know. Maybe that's old school thinking. I don't know. I know it worked before. I don't know what the real answer is. And I quite honestly think I don't think anyone has the right answer on that. So we just continue doing what we're doing, or we try new things and see how long that lasts. And if it doesn't work, we'll move on to plan B and plan
Yeah.
C and plan D. And I know that there's been an immense amount of time spent by people at US Soccer over in the more successful European countries to see how they do it.
Yeah.
But yet I know that's been going on for the last 20, 30 years now. And I don't know I haven't seen too many changes. So I don't know if we're doing things wrong. I don't know where the disconnect is.
Yeah.
I'm more of an ops guy, if you will, and I stay out of the way on the field. I do believe I have a good eye for talent, but I just think that we have to be in a position where everyone has a chance. And I keep going back to I really admire the clubs I'll use this as an example. Phoenix Rising, it's they've had that I know of two players come through their academy that have actually seen minutes on the field. Um, I don't know if more recently that's changed, but they spend an inordinate amount of money on their youth academy. But although the youth academy I would venture a profit center for the club, but why go through all the effort of doing all of that when none of the players ever touch the field for your senior team?
Yeah.
And it's not just Phoenix Rising. I'm not trying
Right.
to knock
Yeah,
Phoenix
no, for
Rising.
sure.
I just did because they're here, they're local to
Local
where
team.
you and I are. And I have nothing against Phoenix Rising at all. So they're not the only ones doing that. But MLS Next Pro, what I see there is much different. I saw guys that played well on the town, and then they had the opportunity to go up to the senior team. Some of them played, some of them didn't, but the opportunity's there
Yeah.
for them to do that. And I really admire the clubs that put the younger players out there and give them a chance to see what they can do.
Yeah,
Until you're given a chance, it's all talk.
for sure. For sure. No. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's if somebody had the solution, like we would have already produced it, right? It's a complicated issue, and you look at how gigantic the United States is compared to a lot of these smaller, successful European countries. It's certainly a lot more of a complicated issue to kind of try and resolve and
People
figure
think
out.
it's people think it's political, and outside of a coaching decision that our national team made a few years ago and has stepped away from, I would say there was probably some politics in that with Berhalter.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's not political. People think it's politics and corruption and stuff like that. Well, that happens and that does happen. I just don't, from my vantage point and the experiences I've had, which have been a lot, I don't see it that way at all. And I do see everyone wanting to get to the same goal. So yeah, I don't know what the right answers are. I wouldn't ever want to take a job at US Soccer of turning the ship around. I don't know because
Yeah.
that's first of all, that's not my forte or what I know. But I think I like what I'm seeing at the lower levels. I like what I'm seeing with the talent group coming up. And I think we just, as hard as it is sometimes, I think we just need to trust the process and know that the people at USSF do work hard and they do work smart. And we just have to trust the process.
Yeah. No, I think like you said, things are on, at least right now, on a good trajectory. I think it was hard, to look at it five years ago or whenever the last World Cup was and kind of see the things that happened there and missing the World Cup the previous cycle.
That was a killer.
Yeah, right. So certainly you knew that there was change that was needed from that point. And I think kind of like you said, looking at the growth of these lower division clubs and how things are growing, I think more opportunities is better. But we
So you're
definitely,
familiar with the camps that U.S. Soccer has, right? Like
yep,
the camps that they call in various cities, typically warm weather areas during the winter.
yep,
You have a January camp, and then you have a camp right before summer matches and all that. The
yep,
January camp has always been to bring in not your A players, your A plus players. It's to
right,
bring in guys that you're looking at that this kid might have a chance. We just need a better look at him. Let's bring him in for 10 days and see how he gets along with his teammates. How does he
yep,
play on the field? Can he play with one team 1 minute and go play on a national team the next? A lot of players can't make that jump. They get
yep,
used to playing with their club players. They get into an all-star situation and they fold, right? So the January camp has always been one that, to me, it's the most important camp of the year for U.S. soccer, just strictly speaking of camps, because again, it brings in guys who normally wouldn't be there. I'm hearing from friends of mine who are involved there that this January's camp, the one that just
yep,
concluded, was probably the best as far as talent is concerned that we've had in maybe ever. And so that gives me a lot of hope. There were a lot of guys who were brought in and given a shot to play in a couple of friendlies that blew everyone's minds. And so I think, you lived the life, James. When you're a pro player, you only get to dress 20 players for a game. It used to be 18. You can only dress 20. And when you're at training every day, there's 30 guys out there training. So you have to bust your butt every day to get in the 18 or get into the 20, right? And I think that we've had a system here where we get used to and comfortable with a certain player or a certain last name that player must be involved and must be in the 18 or 20.
yeah,
I see that changing. I see the new coach come in with a different philosophy regarding that. And the harder you work in training, the better chance you have of being in the 18 or being in the 20. And
yeah,
I think that it's just, I think the fostering of talent is there and the fostering of the mentality of getting into the 18, which is why you see the players who go over to Europe do so well because they every day is a grind. Here in
yeah,
the US, it hasn't been that way. I see it getting that way. I see
yeah,
it getting better. But that's why over the years, the players that have come back from Europe and played on our national team, that's why you see the results out of what they're doing. Plus, obviously, the competition level is much different. You got to speak to that a little bit, but no, I think it's all, I think it's a mentality. I think that, and I truly do have believed that the best athletes go to football, baseball, basketball before they go to soccer.
yeah,
I'm starting to see that change a little bit as well, and with that is contract money and things like that. I mean, like U.S. Soccer now has Home Depot behind them, and they're building a fantastic. I was at the groundbreaking in Atlanta last year. Unbelievable facilities now for our players, and now the player contracts. Messi coming in and Beckham was here. I think that the money is coming, and I think that it will attract better athletes to our sport here in our country. I
yeah,
do.
yeah,
We got to trust the process, and
yeah,
we also have to trust in, and I say this looking straight into this camera. Everyone at US Soccer is there, and everyone there, there's no one there trying to sabotage soccer in our country. Everyone there wants to see it go. It's just might have people might have different philosophies. How do
yeah,
we get everyone on the same page?
yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of talent working within U.S. soccer, a lot.
Yeah,
Uh, yep, a lot of white collar talent working there to make things better for the soccer player in our country.
gotcha. Okay, well, that's 45 minutes, a little over 45 minutes right there. So we'll go into a little bit of added time. We'll go one question, one final question for you, and it kind of is a little bit of a piggyback off of what we were talking about a little bit at the end there. Like maybe we don't all have the answers for how US soccer needs to change, but what about if you were giving advice to a parent or if your son, say Corey, you go back and Corey's 12, What would you do as a parent, or what advice would you give to a parent who has a child and their dream is to go play professional soccer?
You bring up it's a very interesting question. Parents have a lot put on them when they have a kid who desires to play soccer.
Yeah.
A lot of parents didn't play soccer or play at a high level of soccer. And so now you have a mom and a dad that come together, they have a son or a daughter, and now now their child is 12 years old, just like you said with Corey, 12 years old, and this kid's good and wants to play. Well, let's look at what those parents are being asked to do if they have a good soccer playing son. Train 3 nights a week for 90 minutes, and then every weekend they have a minimum of one game,
Yeah.
right? Minimum of one
Yeah.
game. Most weekends, two, three, 4 games, and it rips out their Saturday and Sunday.
And
So
some clubs are
they
training
leave
more
work
than
on
3 days a week.
they
Yeah.
leave work on Friday. They might have a Friday night game, and then they've got them on next thing they know, it's Sunday night, and they got to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very difficult for those types of parents, right? What I would encourage parents to do is just, make sure that they understand what the most important thing is, and that's family and school and all these others. And soccer comes down here. Soccer should not be the number one thing, and obviously to a 12-year-old, it's going to be the number
Yeah.
one thing. So it's a parent's challenge to make sure that they remind their son or daughter every day, the importance of being a good person and being responsible, being respectful to others, all those types of things. But it is difficult if you have a son or a daughter who is a very good athlete. And everything I just said there, that goes to all sports, volleyball,
Yeah.
softball, all sports, right? And so, but my biggest advice to parents is up until the age of at least 10, maybe 11, have your kids play all sports. They should play baseball, basketball. I don't know about football, but definitely try to play as many sports as they can before they lean on and just go straight into full-time soccer. Because there's a lot hand-eye coordination in baseball, hitting a ball, seeing something come at you at a fast rate of speed, and there's all different footwork that you get by playing other sports.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that come into that can really, really assist. But my biggest advice is do not pigeonhole your son or daughter into one sport, be it soccer or any other, at a young age. Let them play all the sports, and then understand that it's a you as a parent have to make the commitment to your son or daughter if that's the path they choose to go play competitive sports, because it's a grind. It's a
Yeah.
grind, and it can be a lot of fun, and you get to meet other people, and you have, other parents of kids on your son's team, and you enjoy those times and everything, but it can be a real, real grind. Here's the thing, I think it's just father time. I think that's going to end up helping us here in our country. I think as you and Corey, who are now older and getting married and about to start families, when you guys have children, hopefully you do, and they play soccer, you will understand that grind, right?
Yeah.
I think there's about to be a generation of parents that understand what that grind is and understand how to have work-life athletic balance. You know what I mean? And deal with all the things that go into having a young son or daughter that plays competitive level sports. So, yeah, I think that better times are ahead. But again, it's a huge commitment, especially to a parent who did not play and doesn't understand all of it.
Definitely. No, I totally agree with everything you said, and I'm kind of like the perfect example of what you talked about in the first place. I had success in soccer primarily because I played all the other sports, like all that stuff translated to soccer
Yep.
just as well. Like I was a good all-around athlete, and that helped me a lot in my soccer career. Going off that too, just one more thing I want to add on to that is you talked about kind of just overarching advice for the parent. What about the parent who has, like you said, a really good player? What advice would you have for them in terms of what goes into their decision-making process when they're picking what club their son should play for or what club their daughter should play for? What advice would you have for them of what they should prioritize in making that decision?
Ask tons of questions to the club. If a club comes along and a coach says, "Hey, I want your son or daughter to play for my team next year," and you're not quite familiar with that club or that team or that coach, I think is the question you're asking. I would definitely ask as many questions as I can of the club, and I would ask to speak to parents who have children on those teams and make those calls and just make sure that you do your homework and make sure that not only the club's good for you, but that you feel that this is just make a decision. Obviously decisions like that are primarily made on gut, and you're making your best decision, with your heart and hoping that you make the right decision. But definitely do your homework on those types of situations, but also make sure that whatever club you pick, it works for you. Don't have a 12-year-old kid who can't drive a car. Don't put that kid into a club across the other side of town and make the commitment now of having to travel that kid every day, 3 days a week for practice, and meaning you have to adjust your work schedule. Don't make those types of, if you can avoid it. Just when you pick a club, pick it for all the right reasons. Make sure that you go through and do an extensive background. Get on Google, look up your coaches, look up the technical director. There's plenty of information out there to find. If you're on Google, and some of it might not always be right or accurate or true, but definitely do your best to do your homework on things like that.
100%. I think ultimately, like, to put on to what you said, just making sure it's the right fit for you, for your family, and that whatever club you do go to is going to have your kid's best interest at heart and not the money or the business that is associated with all of that. For sure. Well, awesome, Ron. I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and discuss. I really, really enjoyed the conversation and just your plethora of experience and background. I appreciate it. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to plug about your company or anything like that, but if so.
Yeah, nothing to plug, but I do appreciate what you're doing. I think as having watched you grow up as a young man into who you are now, I love what I see. You have a passion for this game and you want to see it grow, but you want to see it grow the right way. You were blessed with the coaches that you had, especially at the end of your youth career. You had the best coach in Arizona, hands down, in Drew Gennari, who taught you guys more about life than the game of soccer. To me, you listened and you embraced a lot of what he had to share with you, and it shows. And so, no, keep doing your pod, keep doing this, keep talking. The more we talk, the better it's going to get. And I would just encourage everyone out there to please understand and be positive about our country. I think I'm tired of everybody saying how, as you said earlier, it's easy to point things out that are wrong. It takes a real person to point something out wrong and say, how do we fix it? And that's what you're trying to do with this podcast. You're trying to fix it with your voice and also getting out there and coaching and training young kids. So you're putting your actions behind what you see, and that's good. And if we have more people like that, I think the sport's only going to grow the way it should. And maybe someday we will get into that World Cup final.
Definitely. No, well, I appreciate everything you said. And kind of like you said, that is my goal, just having these conversations. What can we do to fix it, to make it better, and to leave it better off than what it is now? And for sure. Awesome. Thanks, Ron.
You got it. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Over the Line podcast, hosted by James McGee. The conversation doesn't stop here. If we want to push U.S. soccer forward, we need to keep asking the tough questions, challenging the system, and finding real solutions. Together, we can educate the next generation of players and parents, helping them navigate the system and unlock their full potential on and off the field. But if we're serious about creating more pathways of opportunity for our players, it's going to take more than just me. It's going to take all of us. What do I mean by that? If this episode brought you value, take your commitment over the line by subscribing, leaving a review, and, if you feel inspired, helping send this message not just over the line, but straight into the top corner by sharing this podcast with someone who's just as passionate about changing the game. The only way we build real change is together. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep pushing, keep improving, and let's take the game over the line.